guys, so in this video I'm going to talk about how to line up vinyl stencils when you're painting a sign. I showed you guys my polka dot version of this Easter egg, and I explained in the video how it was really hard to line up the stencils because the vinyl is not clear. I was also using the non-clear transfer paper, so eyeballing it is kind of difficult. So this is a kind of a cheat way to do it, a little trick, using registration marks. Well, one registration mark. I mean, you can use more than one, but this one's pretty simple, so I only had to make one. So for this sign, as you can see, I did chevron on this one. So I had painted the egg a light blue. That's why every other stripe here is blue. And then I cut a chevron stencil, laid that whole stencil down, and then I went one by one, painting the yellow, painting the pink, painting the mint, and just went one by one, pulled the whole stencil up, and then the background looked like this. I did not record painting that part. I wish I had, but I forgot. So we're going to move ahead. Now for the text, what I did was I created an offset for this black. I think I just did the automatic setting that it does, the distance right here. Just applied that. I painted my offset white, painted the text black, so this is kind of what it looked like. So now to create our registration mark, we don't even need any of this part since this was a whole separate stencil. I'll go ahead and delete this stuff out of here. Okay, so now to create our little registration mark that will help us line this up, I like to just create a little square. So you come up here and select this, hold the shift key, and then make it, and it keeps the perfect scale to create a perfect square shape. You don't need to make it very big. I made mine about this size, I want to say, and I just kept it right here at the top. I feel it's easier to line things up if it's up here at the top versus like sticking it awkwardly here in the middle or something, or in this space. So I would just stay with the top. Now what we want to do is we're going to cut two separate stencils. The white part, the offset, is going to be its own stencil with a registration mark, and then the black text is going to be its own stencil with a registration mark. Now the point in doing this is we're going to have a square on each one, and we want the squares to line up perfectly when we're laying the stencil down. Now to get these as two separate stencils and having the square in the same spot, I don't know if there's another way to do it, but this is just how I do it. I select the text, so this black part here, hold the shift key to select more than one item. I select the square, I copy and paste, which is Control C, Control V, move it over here to the side. I group these together because I want to make sure that that square stays in that exact same spot as this one is. Then I come back over here and I delete this one, select the offset with the square, and group it together. So now they both have a registration mark, but they are also still perfectly lined up. So the square is going to line up when we line up our stencils, and this will make more sense when I show you here in a minute. So you would just go ahead and cut this as one stencil, and then you'll cut this as one stencil. And now we can get to painting. I can show you how to do it. So like I said, I went ahead and painted the egg with the chevron and the blue background already. I cut both of my stencils here. Now the trick for putting the offset stencil here on first is to not weed out that square, that registration mark that we made. You want to leave that in there because we're going to use that to line up the second stencil. So just make sure not to take that one out. Now here's the key part for weeding. You want to go ahead and pull off any tape that you might have, and when you pull this vinyl up, you want to make sure that you leave that registration mark, the little square, behind. We want that to stay on the sign and pull the rest of the vinyl off, and we're going to use that little square for the next step. Now, as you can see right here, I almost forgot to do this part, which is very important. The second square that is in our second stencil here, you need to weed that out. And the reason that we are taking that one out is because we want that square to be an empty space that we can see through to line it up with the square that is already on the sign. So for the second stencil, you're going to want to use something clear to transfer. That way we can see through the square. You just take your sign and line the second square over the top of the first square that we left behind on the sign. So lining these two squares up will line the rest of the entire stencil up. So it's really easy. Once you've got that down, just go ahead and push the vinyl and everything will be lined up. And then when you go to tape this part off before you start painting, I just recommend that you put a little piece of tape or something over that square area so you don't get any paint that might bleed through that part of the stencil.
Invincible.